Alright guys, so this is going to be a part 2 of yesterday's video. Yesterday I dove right into it, so I want to let you understand something. I'm making these videos for you to get the information, not to tell you one is better than the other. That's not what this video is for. This video is for you understanding how the product works, what fits your needs, and do you prefer a CO2 inside the launcher or do you prefer a CO2 inside the magazine? Now, the video is not trying to be biased or anything like that. It's just what I encountered. I own all three, and you know, this information is for you guys. If you don't like my video, you could turn away. It doesn't matter to me. But this is for information for people who is looking for it. So when I take the time to make these videos, I don't get paid for it. All right? This is me using my own time, my own resources to make these videos. All right, so let me start off with the Byrna HD. So with 1 8-gram CO2, Byrna claims that you could get 4 magazines. Now, with that being said, the Byrna with 2 magazines, which is a total of 10 rounds, yeah, you could get that. Once you get to 2.5 magazines, you start seeing the velocity decrease, you know, significantly, that you could actually see the projectile travel slower in the air. So I wouldn't use 4 magazines for the Byrna HD. I think the Byrna HD, it would be perfect for 2 magazines. In fact, if they had adjustable velocity, I would have turned up the velocity and just have the whole entire 8-gram CO2 give all the power for 10 rounds. I would trade up the 2 extra magazines, which is 10 more rounds, for only 10 rounds with more power. As far as the Byrna HD magazine, it holds 5 rounds, and some people are saying you could do a +1. From my testing, when you do a +1, what happens is the barrel, when it encases the projectile, when it goes in to cover the projectile, the magazine doesn't have space to push the rounds underneath it back down into the magazine. So when you do a +1, which is a total of 6 rounds, you load one, you pull out the magazine, you add 1 more round into the magazine. Once you put the magazine in, it's going to be very impossible for the barrel to encase the projectile, to shield it, and then to release the CO2. The reason why is that the barrel has to wedge between the projectiles underneath it and also encase the projectile that it's about to launch. So you're going to get a jam, and sometimes it's not going to work all the time. You know, the success rate on that is not always there. That's why I say it's a 5-round shot, a 5-round magazine. Now I want to talk about the mission TPR. So one of the viewers said that they do a +1 all the time, which I can see that possible for sure. You know, I'm not saying that's not possible. So I never tried it. There was no reason for me to try it. The TPR holds, you know, 7 rounds. If you want to do a +1, yeah, I see that it could work. So I want to talk about the velocity when it comes to these launchers. So the Byrna HD, the way it works, it's very similar to like an air valve releasing air. So it's almost like having a spitball in your mouth and bringing the straw to your lips to encase the spitball, and you could blow out. That's how it works. That's why it's so compact, because it doesn't have a bolt system like the TPR and the TCP. The TPR has a blow forward system, which is a bolt that blows forward to launch the projectile out. The same thing with the TCP. So the reason why the Byrna is so much smaller is because it doesn't have a bolt system. It has an air valve system. So now, some people ain't gonna like what they're hearing. It's just reality. This is how it is. I get that. If you're a fan of something, then you're a fan of something. But again, this video is not to discourage anyone saying that don't get this, get this. I strongly and highly recommend you buy what you want, because that's the only way you're going to satisfy that wanting. You know, get what you want. If you don't like it, you can return it. That being said, I'm not trying to be biased. I'm explaining to you what I see as far as the characteristics go with these devices. Again, the TCP, the regulator, it's more consistent on the power band. The TPR, more consistent with the power band. The Byrna fluctuates a lot, 285, 250, 278, 255. Like it jumps a lot of numbers. So that's not a bad thing. It's just not a consistent regulating that's going on. I want to talk about the feel. The Byrna HD feels really good in the hands. It feels great. This texture right here is really good. For the women, this is going to be one of the go-to devices that fits well with your palm. Second would be the TPR. And you're probably saying, well, why would you choose a TPR? It's bigger. Well, for home defense or RV defense or camping, the TPR has a more smaller handle. The reason why is there's no CO2 inside the handle. So it feels more better to hold in your hand versus the TCP. The TCP has a bigger opening mouth for the magazine because it holds the CO2. And it's very like, the angle of it is not really comfortable. That's why some people put grips on it. But when it comes to comfort, the Byrna and the TPR. So now I want to get back to the magazine. So this is a First Strike T8.1 magazine. This is a sleeve. This is Instinct Industries. This magazine could take a 12-gram CO2, but I didn't tell you guys that you cannot shoot VXR projectiles out of this because the mouth for the VXR projectiles is more bigger. This is small. So you can't use this for VXR rounds. You could only use this for round ball. So from the factory, the TPR is only designed to shoot round ball. You would need a Tippmann long range kit, which includes a shape breech where it's shaped. It's not like that. It looks like a D shape. You would need the breech, and it comes with a magazine, the same exact magazine where you could put the projectiles, like the HP68s would fit in here. So if you want to use the TPR for HP68s, or let's say you got a TIPX or assault supply, you could get the Tippmann long range kit to do that. But you're perfectly fine using the dual projectiles. So when it comes to the CO2, the Mission TPR, the 12-gram CO2 is very available. You could get this at Dick's Sporting Goods. You could get this at Walmart. It is very hard to get an 8-gram CO2. Most places don't even carry it. So with that being said, when it comes down to the CO2, the easiest size you can get at your local store would be, your local sporting goods store would be the 12-gram CO2. Now, when it comes to the actual canisters, let's say nitrogen, when it's extremely cold outside, the CO2 decreases in power. It doesn't perform well. Byrna hasn't came out with their nitrogen canisters yet, but you can use nitrogen on the TPR and you can use nitrogen on the TCP. I don't know if PepperBall is coming out with their own brand nitrogen, but I believe you could just purchase a nitrogen from Amazon.com and have it shipped to you. So nitrogen is better for cold weather when it's below 35 degrees because it's going to have more consistent power. CO2, when it's cold, it's not going to be effective. So right now, you can use nitrogen on the TPR, 12 gram nitrogen. It's basically a N2. And you could do the same thing with the TCP. You could use a 8-gram nitrogen or a 12-gram nitrogen. So again, if you want the Byrna HD, just buy the Byrna HD. If you want the TPR, just buy the TPR. If you want the TCP, buy the TCP. I'm just telling you how they work and my experience with them, and that's all. It's not to persuade you to buy one over the other. There is no which one is the best, because the matter of fact is not everybody wants to have the CO2 inside the launcher. You know, some people want CO2 inside the magazine. So I want to give you a good example of the pros and the cons. So the Byrna HD, is the one that you could use the fastest. So let's say a spontaneous attack, random act of violence. If someone comes and attacks you, you could just take the safety off and pull the trigger, and it's gonna launch a projectile. And also, when it comes to the TPR, when you take the safety off, you gotta pull the trigger twice to launch a projectile. But it's ready to go. So that's the benefit, that's the upside of having CO2 inside the launcher, because they're ready to go. As far as the TCP, being that the CO2 is inside the magazine, some people can get over the fact that you gotta twist this. Now, when you're under high stress, this can be a problem because you might end up stumbling trying to grab this and twist it. That's why you would have to practice with this. So this is not for everybody, but it is for somebody, okay? So sometimes people want something that they could just use quickly, and the quickest one to use, to pull out and use, is gonna be the Byrna HD. Because you just take the safety off, you pull that trigger, and it's gonna launch. The TPR, you take the safety off, you pull the trigger twice, it will launch. The TCP, you're gonna have to pull it out, twist this, your nerves might be crazy and you might fumble with this, but that's why you have to practice. Twist it, take the safety off, and then you can use it. So that right there is a big deal for a lot of people. So there's pros and cons to each device. It's which one you're willing to accept and which one you don't want. So the pros and cons with the Byrna HD is there. The pros and cons with the Mission TPR is there. The pros and cons with the TCP is there. But at the end of the day, it's what you're willing to deal with when you're in a high stress environment and you have to defend yourself. So that choice is up to you. It's not which one is better. It's which one is better for you.